Here's the problem, and this is you. You're training 6 days a week. Your CNS, cooked. Joints, cooked. Ligaments, cooked. Tendons, cooked. Social life, well, you probably didn't have one just like me anyway, but yeah, cooked. You don't even give yourself a chance. So what's the problem when you're training 6 days a week? Well, a lot of people end up doing push-pull legs, bro splits, even an upper lower. Actually, upper lower is good, but for 6 days a week, you're probably doing push-pull legs and bro splits. And it's just too much. You're doing way too much junk volume. And the thing with CNS, okay, let's not even talk about junk volume for now. Your CNS, you ever experience brain fog? You can't think properly, your memory's just not there, you feel like you're floating around, everything's slow. Yeah, that's called CNS fatigue. And if you're a natural, which pertains to probably most of you watching this channel, because if you're on gear, I've not got experience with that, so I can't help y'all with that. This is not judgmental. You're probably going to want to find someone who's been on gear and can talk about it and share their experiences. Sam Sulek is a great example. But anyway, back to my point. For those of y'all who are natural, your CNS fried, and then you've got your joints, ligaments, and tendons. This doesn't actually just pertain to naturals, but for most people, when you're training 6 days a week, it's just overuse city. You're very likely to cause a bunch of issues there. And you don't want that because that slows down your progress. I've been there. I used to train 6 days a week, high volume, and I just kept getting cooked and I didn't understand why, but now I do. So listen to me. Social life, yeah, don't listen to me. I don't have one. But anyway, at least you're giving yourself the option when you're training 3 days a week to have a social life. So here's the blueprint to getting a top 5% physique that's better than 95% of other people. Maths. So what you want to do is do this, because if you train 3 days a week, that's a fat W. And I promise you, you're going to make a lot more gains than you can imagine and think. So let's start. What do you want to do? Full body split. For most people, that's going to be a great option. I don't know if y'all have heard of this guy called Mike Mentzer. If you don't, check him out. Very good stuff. Rest in peace. Great bodybuilder. Advocated 3-day splits, and he even advocated only doing 1 set, sometimes to failure. Now, I think it's probably better for most of y'all to do 2 to 3 sets per body part. As you can see here, that maximizes the amount of sets you do per week, and research has shown that even a minimum of 4 sets per body part can stimulate growth, so long as you're training close to failure at a high intensity. Now, that's probably more applicable to beginners only. I would say if you're someone who's already training, which you probably are 6 days a week, yeah, 2 to 3 sets per body part is sufficient. That puts you at around 6 to 9 sets per week. And if you're training close to failure at a high intensity, you will make progress. Number 3, machines versus free weights. I personally would recommend both, but it depends. And more often than not, for most things in fitness, etc., the answer is it depends. If you just want to accelerate your progress, get as aesthetic as possible, and you don't care about anything else, i.e. building strength, stability, etc., honestly, just do machines. It's simple to use. You can get close to failure very quickly without learning too much technique. The path and range of motion of the movement is fixed, so you really can't go too wrong, even though I have kind of seen it. So yeah, training technique does matter, but it's easier to have good training technique on machines compared to free weights. Now, why do I still advocate doing both? I think the great thing about free weights is it carries over very well to machines. So if you know how to bench press, you will be able to use any chest pressing machine very well. If you're able to squat well, deadlift well, leg movements are going to be easy. Overhead press, barbell row, again, same thing. You're going to find machines very easy to use, whereas that doesn't really happen vice versa. On top of that, the benefits you get from free weights are improving your core stability, improving your ability to be stronger. So if you're someone who also wants to be able to move well, continue doing whatever sport you're doing, then I would probably advocate doing free weights, and you can build just a great amount of muscle doing that as well. But if your goal just pertains to aesthetics and you don't care about anything else, you don't want to learn technique, you don't want to pay for a trainer, yeah, I'd probably go with machines. All right, number 4.
logging your progress. Now, this ties into this, and obviously all things here tie into each other and they're intertwined, they're not separate things. But you want to make sure you're logging your progress. So I use this app called Strong. It holds me accountable for what numbers I've hit previously. And yeah, progressive overload is very important. I didn't put that down, but for those of y'all who are training 6 days a week, you will know what progressive overload is, and it's very important. But I see a lot of people emphasizing it, but don't log their progress. So it's wild. You can go old school style, use a notebook. I use the app Strong, makes it really easy. It tells me exactly what I did previously, and I need to make sure I improve. Now, the problem with progressive overload sometimes is that a lot of people start to change their technique. They cut depth, they cut range of motion in order to achieve progressive overload. But what we actually should be trying to achieve is what we call progressive tension overload, i.e. loading the right muscle group and ensuring that we overload through those means. So here's an example. If you bench press, let's say 100 kilos for 2 sets of 5, and the next workout you need to do, let's say 6 reps on the first set and maybe 6 as well on the second if you can, but if not, that's fine. It's still overloading. You've increased it by 1 rep. However, you ended up cutting depth, so you didn't end up touching your chest, or you ended up arching your back more, or you ended up driving your hips higher, or you used more leg drive. We're not powerlifting here. The goal is not to lift more weight. The goal is to load the correct body part with more tension every time. So training technique does matter a lot for hypertrophy as well, but for different reasons. Not in order to increase the amount of weight we lift, but in order to ensure that we are targeting the right muscle correctly and then increasing the amount of weight. So I remember someone saying, I forgot who it was, but the goal is to be aesthetic and build muscle. The byproduct is to be stronger. And you obviously have to get stronger in order to build more muscle. But again, you can get stronger by increasing the amount of muscle fibers you recruit in a lift. So for example, again, bench press, by using leg drive more, we're able to use a bit more momentum. We're also, if we have a good arch, a big arch, we're able to recruit our lats a little more to help us with the bench press. But if your goal is to be aesthetic and you're bench pressing, you're probably wanting to load the chest more, right? So you got to maintain good technique and training technique for hypertrophy. Okay, next, you got to train close to failure. That is pretty much non-negotiable. Now, there's still a bit of a debate on whether or not you should go 100% to failure or just 1 or 2 reps before. Most of us think we're training to failure, but probably not. So just try and train to failure. Chances are that puts you at about 1 or 2 reps in reserve or an RPE of 8 to 9. So do that, okay? Train as close to failure as possible. And why this ties into this and training 3 days a week is because, is when you only have 2 to 3 sets per body part to do, you're much more likely to get close to failure. Whereas if, let's say back then when I trained 6 days a week and did a push workout, I still had, I had 12 sets of chest to do. Yeah, you're going to not get close to failure for the first couple of sets because you already know, oh my goodness, I still have more sets to go later. And you're just like, I'm so cooked. How am I going to do all this? Then you look at your program 2 weeks from now and you're like, oh, I'm just adding more and more volume. And more volume is not the solution for naturals. More volume through higher intensity and overloading reps is the solution, but not adding more sets. Okay, next, nutrition. Simple. This can be a whole different ball game. There's a lot to talk about, but all you need to know for now is you want to aim for about 1.5 to 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. And with carbs, you want to aim for about 3 to 5 grams per kilo. Now, a lot of people go, oh my God, that's an absurd amount of carbs. I'm just going to get really fat, blah, blah, blah. No, eat your damn carbs because that's what's going to make you strong. You need the glycogen storage in order to make sure that you get glucose, and that converts into ATP, and that's what gives you the energy and strength, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Fats, also important. Fill up the rest of your macros with fats, ideally unsaturated, so you want to make sure they're good. Great sources are olive oil, nuts, etc. I'm not going to talk about that. Go on a chart, look it up, or I'll talk about it in another video. Alcohol is also a macronutrient. The government has changed its guidelines and effectively said 0 alcohol is ideal. Anything more than that is not. Research has also shown that the more alcohol you drink, the less you synthesize protein, or sorry, your muscle protein synthesis drops. So go figure. The more you drink, the worse gains you'll get. But not just that, because it affects this, your sleep quality too. And when your sleep quality is cooked, everything else is cooked. So make sure you get 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night, ideally at the same time, and wake up at the same time. Your hormones are highly affected by how much sleep you get as well as when you sleep. So your testosterone, and everyone's talking about how do we increase our testosterone? Well, sleep, not tonka ali and testosterone boosters, etc. Get more sleep. Other hormones included would be your cortisol, melatonin, growth hormone, plenty of other stuff. So make sure you get your damn sleep. Everything else will come hand in hand. But if you do all 7 of these things, training 3 days a week, I promise you, you're going to grow. And that's going to be a fat W for you and everyone else. Well, I don't know about everyone else because you'll end up being in the top 5%, which is better. But hey, also work on your personality. But when it comes to physiques, this is the blueprint. Do it, and I promise you, you'll make a lot of gains. See y'all in the next video, and I hope this helps. Peace.